President Obama eyeing poll numbers that are out today. And 30 years ago today, President Jimmy Carter was fighting for his political life with very similar numbers. That was a battle he would wind up losing. Fast forward today, let's check out those new poll numbers. Pat Caddell is going to talk about with us. He is a former pollster for President Jimmy Carter. Thank you so much for coming in and to give us some context for this as well.
Yeah, I lived through that nightmare 30 years ago. I know all about that. I went through this.
Do you feel like you're having deja vu, or is this a different situation?
It's somewhat a different situation. We had a less partisan environment then. President Carter's problems were he had serious problems, but then we had the Iranian hostage crisis. He went back up in 80, then he went down after the failure. But we were running against a very bad economy. That I remember. In the end, the economy does matter. But this president has got another problem, too, which is a tin ear. But let me step back and say that, we didn't have the kind of, as I said, partisan difference. Also, you have a Democratic Party that's just discovering how divided it really is. And we had that problem in 1980. The problem between the elite of this party, which is essentially an educated, wealthy elite, dictating to a party that's supposed to be the voice of the common man. And those common people care about jobs, getting the economy turned around, economic growth. And the elite running the party, which the president has firmly planted himself with, they're interested in everything but jobs.
Which is the key factor. Let's look at take a look at these polls so we can give some context to what we're talking about here today. These two lines that you see running along there, these are presidential approval ratings. The blue line is for President Carter, the red line for President Obama, and they almost mirror each other. I mean, step by step there.
Yes, they're both, and there's a reason for this, and it's an important one. But right after the election, someone asked me what I would tell President-elect Obama if that was asked. I said, study Jimmy Carter, because there's a very similar thing. Obama somewhat more, but they were both elected after a terrible national crisis. They were both elected as the hope candidates, if you will. Jimmy Carter, a Southerner, a white Southerner in 1976, being elected president, who was a peanut farmer out of political office, was just as improbable as an African American being elected in 2008. But they were both elected because people were investing in it. The crisis you run is disappointment. President Carter was disappointing people. President Obama is disappointing people. Doug Schoen and I wrote a piece a couple of weeks ago on that very subject about being divisive. And we're getting a different President Obama than what people thought they were buying in candidate Obama. And it's hurting, and it's starting to hurt inside the Democratic Party. And this latest thing with the mosque, you see these numbers, he is dropping much further than President Carter did.
So having lived through that administration and been on the inside there, are there lessons that this administration could use to now turn this around? They, still got more than 2 years in the term.
Yes, absolutely. This is, partly you are the hostage of conditions. The first thing is they need to find, as I remember saying to Charlie Schultz, who was the president's chief economic advisor under Carter in 1977, if you are going to have a recession, do not have it in 1980. Get it done with before then. Do not do that. And of course we did. We had a bad one. You're having one now. We may have a double dip. They need a new economic policy. The one they have is not working. The problem is the president was not elected to be for big government spending. That's not what people thought they were elected. He needs to go back to why he was elected. He was to unite the country, not divide it. He was supposed to be in the middle, not somewhere on the far left. And he was supposed to represent ordinary people and not these elite opinions. And we see this mosque thing, for instance, has been a disaster for that, because it's not just Republicans and conservatives, it's Democrats, women, blacks, Hispanics, everyone. It's the whole country is united against the political class. The president needs to decide whether he's the president in the Democratic Party, particularly of the American people, or the president of an elite group of people.
Well, let me ask you, in the short term, the more immediate future, we've got the midterms, obviously, just weeks away at this point, and a number of Democrats seem to be sort of quietly grumbling about what the president does and how that's going to impact them at the ballot.
Yes, well, they should be, because presidential ratings have a tremendous impact. Now, when he goes out and campaigns, as he did 2 weeks ago on the car tour, as we call it, he actually put his numbers up a little bit that week, because there's no counter-narrative to him. Problem is the weighing down on what's happening economically. Democrats are now paying the price, as we warned, as Doug and I particularly warned about health care. You're going to vote for something. You can't cram this down people's throats. The president needs to start focusing on adjusting to being the president he was supposed to be. If he isn't, he's not going to be reelected. He still has the opportunity to turn that around if he returns to the very things that elected him.
Well, the economy is a tough one for whoever's in power
Well,
when
but
it's not
you
good.
can't make it worse by not paying attention to it or by having policies and saying, well, it doesn't matter, oh, I'm against the deficit, but we're just going to spend money endlessly. Country isn't buying it. It's not working.
Yeah, voters
you got to
not
get up
happy
and say,
with what's happening.
just get up and say, you know what, we tried, it didn't work. Franklin Roosevelt's a perfect example. It didn't work, we're going to try something else.
Course. All right, change course. We'll see how it plays out in 2010, 2012, and beyond. Pat Goodell, great to see you.
Great, good to see you.
Thanks for
Good.
coming in.